So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all courtesies observed. I want to say that when you look around the world, you can get pretty depressed, especially if you've got kids or grandkids. But actually last year was a really good year for the ocean. Starting in Nairobi at the UN Environment Assembly, there was a universal agreement, in other words, consensus by all countries, China, Russia, United States, UK, all the big boys and all the little boys and girls. We all agreed that we had put a plague of plastic upon the planet and that it was time to end it, and that we should negotiate a treaty to control plastic pollution. So that treaty negotiation is now underway. It's making good progress. Next meeting is in Paris in May. And, you can imagine who's fighting against in that, but I'm happy to report that the forces fighting for a robust treaty seem to be in the ascendance. So that was good. And then, of course, WTO Ministerial Council, after 20 years of negotiation, finally agreed last year to ban harmful fisheries subsidies. That's $20 billion of public monies every year that go to industrial fishing fleets to chase diminishing stocks of fish. So there were many other victories that I could explain in 2022, but the big one, of course, was Montreal, COP15 of the CBD Convention, where we agreed on this global biodiversity framework, in which falls the target of 30 by 30, which to me is the main focus of this Marine Protected Area Conference that we're having here in Vancouver. But we do have a problem, because it's clear to me that the global biodiversity framework, which arguably is the most important multilateral agreement that we have, even more so than the climate change process. Because, if you look at a world in 200 years' time where we have solved the climate crisis, but in the meantime have seen life fade away through the cascading extinctions of species, which is already underway, but which is going to exacerbate if we don't get 30 by 30 in place. What good is solving the climate crisis if there's no more life around? So that's why I say the global biodiversity framework is probably the most important universal agreement that we have out there. Universal in the sense that every nation has bought into and agreed to apply the targets of the global biodiversity framework. The other thing that I would like to say is that I'm not hearing it enough here at IMPAC5. This is the first best opportunity we have to put some teeth into 30 by 30. If we don't, during this week, get serious about where we're going to put the MPAs so that they're in the best places to protect life, where we're going to put that 30%, and secondly, how we're going to fund that 30%, the establishment of and governance of those marine protected areas. Unless we're prepared to really talk turkey this week, we're in the same land that we were in when we were trying to do 10 by 20, and we failed at that. We got to about 7.8% of the planet of the ocean protected by 2020. So we don't want to repeat that failure. This is where the focus has to be. Where are we going to put the MPAs so that they preserve life the best they can? And secondly, how are we going to fund them? And from my point of view, existing funding flows are insufficient. ODA, philanthropy, NGOs, that's not going to cut it. We need new flows of finance to make that 30% a reality. I'm putting some ideas on the table, things like a toll on international shipping, things like getting the carbon market away from a voluntary thing into a compliance market so that the owners of national assets can, and I hate to say the word, monetize them. The other point I'd like to make is that we're in the UN Decade of Ocean Science. It's estimated we only know about 20% of the science of the ocean. And that's a poor position to be in when you've got people talking about deep sea mining, when you've got people talking about CDR and SRM, you know, the techniques of of taking carbon out of the atmosphere and storing them. These are big geoengineering decisions which we should not be taking in a position of ignorance. And knowing 20% about the science of the ocean is a position of ignorance. So that's why, and again, this is consensus of all 194 countries of the United Nations, we agreed on having the UN Decade of Ocean Science to discover that 80% unknown before we get to 2030 and have to start making those big decisions. So don't underestimate the importance of science. It'll give us the ocean that we need. And in saying that, especially for somebody suffering with a virus like this, please never underestimate the importance of microlife, because you know we're all very well aware of the plights of polar bears and whales and orcas and all the rest. But how often do we spend our time thinking about phytoplankton, and zooplankton, and krill? This is the basis of life. Out of sight, out of mind. You know, they just don't get the attention that they deserve. And you may wonder why I'm saying that. Well, you know, just think of the poisons that we put into the ocean every day, every minute, in the form of chemicals, in the form of microplastics, and in the form of sewage and the heavy metals that go along with that. And you'll see that you know, we are really mistreating the microlife of the ocean. You know, just as a little aside, I was sitting with my friend, the former CEO of WWF, the other day actually in Montreal. And we were addressing a crowd, and I said, you know, Marco Lambertini here, he's got a lovely logo. He's got a panda, WWF. You know, it's raised billions of dollars because people love pandas. They just don't want the panda to go extinct. And so it's been a wonderful logo for WWF. But my logo, you can't see it. It's so small that it's the smallest, in fact, organism that engages in, I've got a mental blank on the process of turning carbon dioxide into oxygen. Somebody help me. Yeah, thanks. So it's the smallest organism that actually does that. And it was only discovered in the 1950s. But, you know, it produces 20% of the oxygen in the atmosphere. 20%. So if my little logo, which is, his name is Prochlorococcus, if that little critter was to be killed off by all these chemicals that we're putting into the ocean, it's 20% of the ocean, the oxygen gone in the biosphere, and that's all of us gone in the biosphere. I'm sorry, but my guy is more important than the panda. So look, I just want to conclude with basically my mantra, and I haven't said it today yet, so I'll say it now. There can be no healthy planet without a healthy ocean, and the ocean's health is currently in decline. And that's in all factors, folks. The only positive factor is marine protected areas. Everything else is in decline. So we have an incredibly important task here at IMPAC5 in Vancouver, which is to put some teeth into the 30 by 30 target, and I trust that we will do it because I'm sure, like me, you all agree on the principle of intergenerational justice. Thank you.